So if you can leave your house, be at the airport in 10 minutes, board the flight in 5, 45 minutes to Vegas, and we're going to be at a business meeting and call that 1 hour. So it's a time machine. We got something pretty special today. We're pulling into the airport at Carlsbad Jet Center right now, my home airport, but I'm actually not flying in the front today. We chartered an empty leg through Jet Methods, the Phenom 100, which I just saw for the first time a couple weeks ago. I'm thoroughly impressed. For a light jet, me and my real estate partners are thinking about in the next couple of years getting something, as we do a lot of business in Texas. So we're pulling in Carlsbad Jet Center. Want to bring you along for a ride of what it's like to go right in the back on a short ride to Vegas. I'm bringing a business friend of mine who also does a lot of real estate. His name's Nate. So we're going to bring you along to sit in the back of a Phenom 100 from Carlsbad to Vegas. So something interesting, a good little tip for if you're not super rich like myself and I don't want to pay full price for a charter jet, there are things called empty legs. What that means is this jet is already going to Vegas to pick up a client, so that client already has to pay for the round trip on the flight. Well, today, a lot of these companies will sell the empty leg, empty leg at a discount to go to Vegas because the jet's already going. They'd rather make a little bit of money than nothing at all. So we got one of these empty legs from Jet Methods out of Carlsbad on the Phenom 100, and we're super excited to go right in the back and bring you along. Let's go to Vegas. John, this is my friend Nate. This is good meet. So Nate owns several local businesses. We just met Joe. He's super cool.
I learned, I just fly a little serious, but we'll go for a power.
Just a little serious.
Yeah, so that's what I said. I've never flown one. I'm like, I did a 150. Yeah. We're sitting here on the Phenom 100. We just took off out of Carlsbad. It's a nice 50-minute flight, which is pretty great. So me and Nate are going to Vegas, meeting with one of his real estate partners. We're gonna have a nice lunch. But the great benefit of flying private, which I'm usually up front, right, is that we don't have to drive 40 minutes down to San Diego Airport, find parking for the car. You gotta get there, what, hour and a half early before your airline flight, because we start boarding at 45 minutes. Go through security, can't bring water and all that. Sure, water's cheap, but the benefit is you can show up to the airport and you're literally 5 minutes. Yeah. You pull up in your car and 5 minutes, door closes and you're wheels up, right?
So a lot of people don't realize it too, but there's so many private airports.
Yeah, and
close to their house, they don't have to necessarily go to the major airports to fly private, right?
Yeah, so most people that fly private, it's either they're going on a vacation and they want to splurge, or literally it's business people going all over the country, all over the world for business meetings. So they save time. I call this, it's a time machine, right? So if you can leave your house, be at the airport for us in Carlsbad in 10 minutes, board the flight in 5, 45 minutes to Vegas, and we're gonna be at a business meeting and call that 1 hour. If you did it normally flying Southwest, sure it's cheaper, right? But you're gonna lose an hour or two, probably 3 hours of your time. maybe
Easy,
4.
easy, yeah.
So depending on how much you make per hour or how much you're going to make at that business lunch, most people that fly private make a high dollar per hour rate. So they value their time. That is the largest benefit of flying private, I think.
How do you value your time is what we talk about all the time on these reels. It's one of those scenarios where if you don't value it, you're not going to be the person flying, private. But if you do, and if I can get 5 more meetings a month that are going to yield me, 50 grand in revenue in some capacity, it's a no-brainer, right? And so as long as you understand that the time you are saving, you maximize and execute, which is what we do.
Yep.
Then that's all that matters. You're going to double or triple the cost of a private charter just by doing that.
Yeah, exactly. And then the charters are all based on size of the airplane. This is a smaller airplane. You can take 5 passengers, right? It's comfortable with 4. It's got a small toilet in it. So if you have to pee, if you're flying about 2 hours, it's got a range of 1,000 miles. We're only going, I think it's 300 or 400 to Vegas. But like I said, 45-minute flight, we're going to land and we're going to have an Uber or a driver set up right away. So we'll be at lunch within 15 minutes of landing. Now, I don't fly private a lot. I'm usually up in the front, but I get to associate and talk to all these business guys like yourself. Nate's a pilot. He flies his own Cirrus to business meetings around. So he's looking at maybe going a little bit faster. What is your Cirrus cruise at?
About 150 knots.
So 150 knots. It's faster than a car. How long does it take you to get to Vegas?
About an hour and 10 minutes.
So an hour and 10 because it's such a short flight. But if we go to a business meeting in Houston next week that we're looking at, Houston and the Cirrus is going to be more like a 5 or 6 hour flight.
At least 6, yeah.
So 6 hours. This thing can probably do it in about 2.5.
Yeah. That's where it matters.
Yeah.
And that's why I can start upgrading. My wife and her family and my in-laws are up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. We have homes in Idaho, and now we're going to be buying some in Miami and Charlotte. And so it's like Havasu. So these are just when you have a plane like this, it's just much more capable of getting you in those types of environments, right? Yeah. And for example, we're gonna, I'm flying out to Cleveland next week, and then we're looking at 30 homes for Section 8, right? Well, trying to do that in a commercial, and then the airport that these houses are next to is not the major airport.
Yeah.
So then you land, then you got to go get a churro or an Uber, then you got to get to this house. It's a pain in the ass, right? But there's an airport that's within 10 minutes of where these houses are, so it saves so much time with that.
Yeah.
And so you just utilize, private aviation specifically for these types of purposes, right? No different than people that want to either buy or charter.
Yep.
Like Jet Methods is a company that's helping us out today. They're incredible, right? And they're allowing us to basically get somewhere and save hours of time. And if you really know how to execute your time, it's well worth it.
It's a no-brainer. Yeah. And if you're looking at spoiling yourself for a 40th birthday or a 50th, like I want to do someday, and you want to take some friends, really, if you share the cost,
it's reasonable, and
it's not far. I mean, if you're taking a Gulfstream to Europe, it's $250,000.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money for someone like me, probably for like yourself, even for one flight. But we can go to Vegas in this airplane for $3,500 one way, about $3,000 to $3,500. That's not that much money.
And you split that among 4 or 5 people, and it's a cool experience. Why would you not do that?
Yeah.
And even in a business standpoint, if your business is successful and you're making good money, it's also a write-off.
Yep.
Right? And you're saving time.
Yep.
So you can't say, oh shit, it's to Cleveland it's $7,000. I don't know if I can afford that. It's like it really isn't. It's probably more like $4,000 or $5,000 after the tax savings associated with it.
Correct.
And then you can justify your hours that you're saving based on that net difference.
And
right?
most of these airplanes have Wi-Fi. The other day I flew commercial and the Wi-Fi was out. I was texting you, I'm like, I'm gonna have no Wi-Fi for 5.5 hours. I was able to make some to-do lists. I couldn't contact anybody.
Yeah.
It felt pretty naked not having Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So if you're a business owner or you're trying to do business, it makes it a lot harder on commercial, in my opinion.
I mean, and again, not to sound pretentious, but dealing with the public when you go into this makes it a lot more difficult too, right? You don't have the privilege of stretching out, holding this out, having a desk come out, work on your laptop. You have a lot more luxury when it comes to that, and it allows you to be much more efficient.
Yeah.
And it's not that the public's bad, but it just creates more difficult, and it's not nearly as convenient, right? Most difficulty when it comes to that. And so in situations where you really want to be hyper focused and get to the spot and really be efficient with your time and execute, you have to go this way. There's no other way of doing it.
The other thing is, the airlines have real strict policies for maintenance, which so do the charter companies, but you get more flexibility with charter. This airplane isn't flying 5 legs today. So at the airline, there's 5 chances of that airplane, weather, delays. So your business meetings can be delayed. And if you miss an important one that maybe you're really trying to close the deal, and the airline delays, sure, you can reschedule, but you might lose a whole nother day.
Yeah.
So that's the other luxury of flying private. We can go into smaller airports, like he said. There's a lot of benefits, and a lot of people that comment on some of these videos that we put out, they just can't afford it, and that's okay. I usually can't afford it, but as I've increased my income and I see the potential to either split trips or go to lunch or have partners on airplanes, now after seeing this Phenom 100, I literally told my real estate partners, and Nate might be one of them, hey, let's get 4 people that own this thing. I saw one for $2 million the other day. So you could put, we were talking 400,000 down, that's $100,000 each. Now you can offset it with some charter by putting it with Jet Methods, and they'll do all the work. They will hire the pilot. So if we can utilize this for business, I'd throw $100,000 down because I can do business deals to cover the cost.
The way I'm looking at it is this. The Cirrus, I just ran the cost on it the other day. It's about $850 an hour to run all in, and that's including insurance and all that, right? The challenge with it is, again, the timing of it, right? But if you can get to a point, I think my payment every month on my Cirrus is like, I don't know, $4,000 a month or $3,000 a month, something like that. But if you can charter it and you have 1 to 3 partners in a plane like this, and you're each paying $3,000, the only difference I'm paying now is just the operational cost to run it, which probably is another, $1,000 an hour. But again, you're splitting it, and it's right off for business. So you really, at the end of the day, not paying that much more to have this than you have a Cirrus, as long as you leverage partnerships and charter to do that. You can't really charter a Cirrus. It's not. They're not as desirable to charter.
They're not as desirable because you get one or two people in it.
Max, with no luggage.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So the point of that is, if you can leverage partnerships, you utilize the taxable benefits of it, and then have the ability to get you further places and save you time and money. I don't know if there's another option that logically doesn't make sense, right?
Correct. Yeah. So this Phenom 100 that we're on, you can choose between 1 or 2 pilots for charter. It is qualified single pilot airplane. I'm good with a single pilot, but the charter client on the other side wanted 2. So we have 2 pilots up front today. We have 4 passenger seats as well as a toilet. So even though I got to pee right now, I'll probably just do it when we land in 25 minutes. But if you're on a longer flight, 2.5 hours to Cabo, I mean, you literally can go to the bathroom here.
That closes up.
Yeah, there's a curtain. So sure, it's not super private on a larger jet. You'd have a door, you'd have some more privacy, but you're going to be paying double or triple the money. So if you're just going to Vegas and you're not taking 10 people, you got 4 people, small family. Some of these even have a belted toilet seat, and some have a 5th seat. So you can actually get 6 passengers in here. So this airplane's very universal, I think. It's flexible. If you have a big crew that you roll with or a bunch of employees, you'd have to level up. There's a Phenom 300 that seats 7 or 8 people. It's just longer. It's obviously a little bit more money, but these Phenom 100s, you can buy them for about $1.8 million to $4 million. So competitive aircraft are a Citation Mustang. It's also a single pilot, small jet like this, as well as the Cirrus Vision jet. So those are the 3 comparable jets. I think this is my favorite one for several different reasons. A big reason on this one is that the Phenom can go up to flight level 410, which is 41,000 feet, which is above most weather. The Cirrus Vision jet only goes to 31,000 feet, which, yes, it sounds high compared to the Cirrus that Nate owns, but a lot of the weather is around the 20 to 30,000 mark. So we can actually get above most of the weather in this light jet.
You're also hitting jet stream. You're going to get higher true air speed, and so this thing cruises at over 400 knots, right?
Yeah. So it's fast.
I mean, 400 knots, for those people that don't know, if you multiply that times 1.15, you're like 450 to 500 miles per hour. My Cirrus only goes to about 200 miles per hour, so it's basically 2.5 times faster. So that's where, when you go to those longer legs, right, to Coeur d'Alene, or this can go nonstop from Carlsbad to Cabo. You get there in just a couple hours. It's incredibly fast, and it gets high, right?
2.5 hours. Yeah. So your plane would take 6?
Yeah.
I mean, it's 1,000 miles.
Yeah.
To Cabo. It's 800 nautical miles. Yeah. So it's just a time saver machine, But anyways, we're on our way to Vegas. We're going to land in 25 minutes. So we'll see you on the ground. Captain Joe. He flew us in this Phenom 100. So how do you like flying the Phenom?
I love flying the Phenom 100. You know, it's a couple of things that I love about it over, say, maybe like a smaller plane, right? Obviously, the cockpit is just so comfortable. You saw we had 2 guys in there. We're both over 6 feet. I think Vlad's like 6'3". Plenty of room for both of us in there. Easy to get in, easy to get out. Plenty of room for our shoulders, you know. In the layout of the cockpit and the way they thought about how to set everything up, you know, like the flow in this plane is so easy. You just start off from the one side and go to the next. So if it's really easy, say you're coming from like a Cirrus or something like that, you know, some high performance plane, it's a real easy transition to make to go onto this plane, right? This one particularly, some of them have the 3000. This is the Garmin G1000. Again, really well thought out, really well worked out with the Phenom. Everything is very much, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like kind of automated and newer?
Yeah, so the automation particularly, it's just so well thought out. It reduces your workload so much. You know, I'm not a huge fan of flying jets, single pilot, but because of the way they've set this thing up, you really can, right? Especially if you take your time and think about it before and all that. But it is really well set up for that, you know? And so the other thing I would say too is they've done a really good job with their training partners of really being able to train people really well on how to use the systems and how to make the plane fly at its best performance and all that stuff. So it's
good to hear. I mean, looking at the cockpit, as you guys know, I fly Gulfstream. Some of them are older and they're not super automated. Like a G4 is not very automated. It's a high workload airplane. Once they got into the G5s, it's more automated. But this is what year is this airplane? Do you know?
This one, I want to say it's 2009. I get to fly a couple of them, so I get.
So it's very new technology up front. As he said, like coming from a Cirrus, if Nate were to buy one of these to fly himself, he could learn it pretty quick. What flight training schools train in the Phenom?
CAE, and I'm pretty sure, what's the other big one?
Flight safety?
I want to say flight safety does it too. I've only ever gone with CAE for my recurrent and all that, and they've been excellent.
Yeah,
fantastic.
And it seems like as a charter pilot, the bag, is that a different baggage store in the back? Is that right? So we didn't bring bags because we did a short flight with just backpacks today, but that's kind of a nice thing. So the pilot doesn't have to run to the back and put the bags in. It's a full separate entrance. And from what I've heard, it's a pretty big, for a small jet, it's a pretty big baggage area.
You can put a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, and that's a great thing. So, hey, thanks for flying us today.
You're very welcome.
So good to meet you. And check out the Phenom 100 with Jet Methods.